Warm good afternoon, everyone, whether you're joining us live on the stage here at the 2022 Rolex Sydney Hobart Race Centre and on the Village Green, or if you are joining us on the live stream wherever you are around the world. Good afternoon. It's just past midday here, Eastern Australian summertime, in the Tasmanian capital of Hobart. My name's Peter G, and joining me on the stage is 31-time veteran of this great ocean race, Peter Shipway. Peter, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon to you, Peter, and to everyone. A lovely afternoon in Hobart. The sea breeze is in, and we'll be bringing boats home. There's still a lot of the fleet out there, almost 70 boats still out there, and good conditions now, as opposed to 24 hours ago when it was fresh to frightening in the river. But at the moment, the nice sea breeze is in, so spinnakers will be up as they get into the river, and there should be a few finishes coming in later today, and all through the day, really.
We've got 28 official finishes so far, and 2 not far away from the line, and both international entries. Cassiopeia 68 from Hungary and Sunrise from the UK that we're seeing now going around the Iron Pot, so 11 nautical miles from the finish here at Kings Pier Marina in Hobart.
Come all the way from England for this race. She won the last Fastnet race, the famous race in England last year that's only held every 2 years, as opposed to our Hobart race that's held every year. And what a great sight that is, the Iron Pot there and Sunrise, and Adrian Cahalan on her 31st Sydney Hobart race. Most races by a lady in the Hobart race in the 77-year history. They're at the top of their division provisionally at the moment. They won't figure in the overall status, but this boat has been a very successful boat overseas. As I said, won the Fastnet race, second in the Middle Sea race, rather controversial after they moved the finishing line on her, but that's a long story for another day. And she won a division in the Caribbean 600 earlier this year. They shipped her out to Australia, and for the smaller boats, the under 50 footers, it really wasn't a race for them for overall honours. Unfortunately for these guys, the TP 52s and 50 footers cleaned up at the overall standings. But nonetheless, a very good performance, and what a lovely sight that is on a beautiful Hobart day.
Well, the international yachtsmen and women on board would have seen these pictures so often. How good for them to actually experience it firsthand, going around one of the oldest lighthouses in Australia on that lump of rock just south of South Arm, and they're officially into the River Derwent now, heading up to the finish line.
They've got about 11 miles to go, so they're probably doing 8, 9 maybe at best, so they're an hour and a half away from the finish, but lovely conditions there. And
that spinnaker's filled up with this sea breeze, which has only come in the last hour or so.
It'll probably build throughout the day, I think, and could have nice 15, 18 knots by come 4 or 5 o'clock. And
what about the conditions reaching across Storm Bay here? They'll, after some slow going early on looking for breeze, the sea breeze has come to the rescue, so to speak.
Yeah, it was pretty light at Tasman Island, which is the entrance to Storm Bay today for these yachts. But already there's a big stack of boats still on the east coast of Tasmania. There's a few boats in the bay, Storm Bay. So we'll have about, I'd say, a dozen or so finishes today. And we'll have a look at the tracker now. And there we go. We can see there's boats in the bay. You can see Sunrise there, just about to come into the river. This tracker's about 20 minutes behind real time. And then Insomnia's there. Yeah, baby. Kealoha, 2. The 1971 Line Honours winners in the bay.
And this year's Line Honours winner is the red boat that you see,
right.
Andu Comanche there, which is here at Kings Pier in all her glory, and a big crowding around taking a look at her.
Yeah, there's Andu Comanche there, just putting all the cruising sails on, ready to go back to Sydney. And the boys are still partying. I was with a few of the crew this morning, and they looked a bit bleary-eyed. But
there's the Elizabeth Street Pier. That's actually where Andu Comanche is moored. All the pens starting to fill up now as we get towards 30 finishes for the great race in 2022, the 77th edition of the Rolex Sydney Hobart.
We might just talk about our friends on Currawong, the little boat in the race, the two-hander, little 31-footer. Those girls hid in Eden for 24 hours while the conditions were not that good, and at the moment they've got going again, but they've still got a long way to go.
They're in 100th place. That's a nice symmetrical number for them.
And we'll just go to the tracker now, and there they go. If you see number 100, Currawong, she's 79 miles south of Gabo Island. So she's well into Bass Strait, 322 miles to go, so she's not quite halfway yet. So they've got a few days of travel to go. But the conditions look as though it'll be nice. The breeze will get, as the day goes on, especially on the east coast of Tasmania, it's forecast to go to the east and then the northeast, and that's to maintain for the next 2 or 3 days. So the boats will have a nice run down the Tassie coast. It won't be fresh to frightening, but it'll be just a nice spinnaker run. And there's the 2 boats that are in the river, Sunrise in the foreground, and I think that must be our friends in Cassiopeia. Is it that how do you pronounce
Cassiopeia,
it?
68. I'm guessing that. My Hungarian is not so good. They're all the way here from a landlocked yacht club on Lake Balaton in western Hungary. I've seen somewhere that the maximum water depth in the lake is 11 feet, which I find it hard to believe. I don't know. Cassiopeia's keel will be dragging along on the bottom, wouldn't it?
They'd want to have a good navigator, I'd say. But anyway, you can see that not much wind pressure there. Sunrise probably doing, 8, 9 knots at best, and there we go. There's the yellow spinnaker of Cassiopeia in the distance. She's even a bit slower than Sunrise, but Sunrise, a 11.8 metre sloop from the United Kingdom, and most of the crew on their first trip to Hobart, and Adrian Cahalan, as I mentioned, on a 31st trip.
And Hobart being the small city as it is, I was talking to Adrian's sister Stephanie, who's a neighbour of mine, on Taroona Beach the other night. She's looking forward to having the family gathering when we see Sunrise come home. By my calculation, on the stage here, for the people watching from the village green, they've seen that there's 4 of us here. It's not just the 2 Peters. We've got a 101 Sydney Hobarts between these 3 gentlemen. We've got Bruce Taylor from Schutzbar and his son Drew here with us. They've been here many times previously. Great to have you shoreside, fellas.
Great to be here after a fairly uncomfortable night.
Well, Bruce and Drew, Chutzpah, let's talk about your race. At the moment, provisionally 3rd in your division. How was the race for you? 40-footer, Chutzpah?
Yeah, we're only 40 feet long, so we're one of the smaller boats. We had a bit of an untidy start, and the run down the New South Wales coast was good, but the run across Bass Strait was fantastic for us. And I think we were well up on the leaderboard at that stage. We knew at the outset that if we didn't get to the bottom of Tasmania by the time the southerly change came through, we were going to be in trouble, and our predictions proved to be correct. We suddenly found instead of running at 17 knots, we were beating at 6.5 knots.
And where did the southerly hit you?
In the stomach, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Besides the stomach, whereabouts were you?
Sort of wandering in towards Maria Island, and then had a very long, slow, difficult beat down to Tasman. And it was uncomfortable. The wind was coming in bursts, so the crew was exhausted. We were changing sails rapidly, and not a particularly pleasant evening.
Well, Drew, you've done 29 Hobart races, and every one of those has been with your dad. Now, you hear a lot of families don't get on, but obviously you 2 do. Is that the case still? I mean, you're going to do another one with Dad?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely, if he's up for it. Look, we've had our moments, it'd be fair to say. But no, generally it's, a lot better than having an annual golf game with your father, really. It's a lot more fun, and we get Dad up to Asia to sail with me, and the ambushes that we've owned up there over the years.
This is in Hong Kong?
In Hong Kong, yep. So it works both ways. It'd be fair to say that the family has contributed significantly to the marine industry over the years and continues to do so.
Well, I think, Bruce, getting back to you, with your various yachts under the name Chutzpah, I think you've had something like, in the overall Hobart races, something like 23 divisional placings. You've had a 2nd, a 3rd, I think a 5th. I'm not trying to rub it in, but you're there but not there, if you know what I mean. And then this year you look as though you could get a 3rd in division.
They sort of tell me I'm a very good-looking bridesmaid.
Right. So you obviously keep coming back. And are you going to have another go next year?
If you'd asked me at 3 a.m, probably not. But yeah, look, I think the thing that makes me coming back to a large extent is our crew. We're essentially the same bunch of guys who started 30 years ago at least. They are a very competent, friendly lot. They, if they want to do it again, I may go to the bank and see if we can do it again.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about Chutzpah, the yacht that you did the last Hobart races on. Tell us a little bit about the history of the boat.
Well, it was we've done 7, I think maybe 8 Chutzpahs over the 41 years, and we went to Pugh, who are an American design team, about 10 years ago, and said, you know, I just want the fastest off-the-wind 40-footer you can design, almost regardless of the handicap system, and it was to be my last boat. And the boat really is a magic bit of machinery. It's great fun to sail. It's quite difficult to sail upwind, but downwind it is just a bullet. So it was quite revolutionary when it was first designed. Had chines, things that didn't exist then, and it's now interesting that as the TPs, for example, have been evolving, they're starting to look more and more like fat Chutzpahs.
Yeah. Well, Drew, sorry.
I was just going to say, do you feel like you're flying the Victorian flag, Royal Victorian Yacht Club, and you always seem to be the Vic boat that people in Melbourne are barracking for, and I guess down here in Tasmania, because you've been here 41 times, these are almost home waters for you.
Well, they are. I mean, you know, we spend more time here than we do at home, I think. No, look, we've had some fantastic mentors in Victoria, guys like Lou Abrams, Peter Rosethorn. These guys really blooded us in ocean racing and were very encouraging. So we do have a great sort of collegiate feel. You know, the Mexicans against the New South Wales people, but yeah, we've got great support in Victoria, and we are basically amateurs. Even just getting the boat up to Sydney and getting sorted each year is a reasonably big undertaking. So we have great support, and that's one of the reasons we keep doing it.
And Drew, let's get back to the race just concluded for you. The start, it was terrific television for the big boats, crashing, banging, yelling and screaming. Well, not too many crashes, fortunately. How was the exit out of the harbour? Your dad said it was a bit not as good as you perhaps hoped.
Yeah, no, we usually get out of the harbour pretty well, but we had a little friendly altercation with someone on the start line, and that sort of pushed us back a couple of rows, getting off the start line. So we actually battled out the harbour a fair bit. Once we got set up, we started picking off places again down the New South Wales coast. But really, I think we took the big jump as the breeze built going across Bass Strait. And we cut into Gabo Island, and that, I think, gained us a few miles, and then we really took off. And then the Tasmanian coast, as is so often the case, proved a wee bit more challenging.
It never lets you down, does it? It never lets you down. So did you realise then, Bruce, that probably the goose was cooked as far as overall was concerned when the southerly hit you?
That was very well done.
Yeah, very well done. It was overcooked. It was overcooked. Yes, exactly.
It's dry. It's dry meat anyway. So you know.
And how fresh was the southerly?
Too fresh.
Was it?
I think at one stage we sort of were into the 40s. The difficult part was the bullets. You know, it would go from nothing to just blasting, and on a little boat.
What was the highest gust you recorded?
I think in the low 40s, was it?
Yeah.
That's knots.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know that's howling in a small boat, and the difficult part is we have to just keep changing sails, and on a small boat that's hard work for a lot of guys. But they did a great job. Yeah.
And just for the people out there that mightn't be right into sailing, those bullets are very hard to sail in, aren't they? You get the squalls come down, they hit you, then it goes soft again, and it's hard to keep the boat in trim.
It is, and it's very hard to do it at night. And because of the very large swell running out there, you then have a cross sea on top of that. And again, being a small boat, that really tends to knock you around. So yeah, look, it was a difficult last 24 hours, but in terms of the Tassie coast, they either blow you out of the water or you sit there becalmed. It's a difficult place for us.
Well, Drew, looking at your crew, I mean, between your 240 40 Hobart races combined. I mean, that is a tremendous performance to keep a crew together so long. It must be very compatible, which is what ocean racing's about, compatibility as well as ability. I mean, it says a lot for your dad's leadership and your leadership, I guess, to have all those guys coming back year after year on the same boat.
Oh, absolutely, and I think, that I think is the attraction. That's why I come down from Hong Kong every year. That's why Dad does it every year. Many of these guys have been in the same crew since the mid-80s. We're not quite as young as we once were. I'm not 16 anymore. But, the bonding and the understanding you get of each other and how each other performs in certain circumstances is very powerful as well. And that really, I think, is a testament to how the team's moulded over all those years.
They're saying that the 29 Sydney Hobarts that you've done together is a record that will never be broken for a father-son combination. Records are there to be broken, but you must feel a little bit of pride about that.
Oh, absolutely. As I said, it's very special to be able to do it with your old man. It's very special to be able to get him up to Asia and do the same sort of things that we do up in Hong Kong. And yeah, look, there are, I think, 4 or 5 father-sons that have done 25 each. But yeah, I think it'll be pretty tricky to beat 29 together.
What about the Ian Taylor on the crew list? Is he any relation?
Not as far as we know.
It's taking you a while to find out.
Ian is a great bowman, trained from the school of Lou Abrams. Done many miles. We've come second twice overall, and Ian has now done it second also overall twice. He's commonly known as Strings because that's what he plays with. And his young son joined us on a delivery trip a while ago, and he's known as VB. Nothing to do with beer, but it's
VB cord.
a little string.
Venetian blind cord, yeah. Terrific. Yeah. So, looking ahead, this race is done and dusted for you guys, and 2023 Rolex Sydney Hobart race is, less than a year away. We're going to see you again?
Yeah, look, at 3 o'clock in the morning I was having second thoughts, but
everyone has that, Bruce, in the race, you know that.
Someone tells me it's a bit like childbirth,
I can't help you.
Apparently it isn't so bad a few weeks down the track. Yeah. Look, if the guys want to do it, we'll certainly try and put the act together. But really, the fellas have done, some of them have been with me for 30 years. I mean, we've gone from being one of the youngest crews to now looking for carbon fibre Zimmer frames. Right. So, if they're keen to do it, we'll see what we can do and put it together. The boat is still competitive in the right conditions.
Yeah. Given, you said the southerly knocked you back, it's been a fast race, hasn't it?
We hold the record for the 12 metre at a race down here, under 12 metres, which was 2 days and I think 4 hours. Our routing suggested this race we could maybe break that if we got round the corner before the southerly, but it just didn't happen. We were about 2 hours too late. So yeah, it is a fast race. I've had to lean on the hotel to get into our rooms because they weren't booked for tomorrow.
You're looking very fresh. What's the rest of your stay in Hobart entail for you and the crew? And when you're heading back?
Would you really like to know?
No, stay away from that.
Keep it PG if you can.
No, look, in all honesty, I always do the delivery up to Sydney to find out what's not working on the boat. I usually bail out and try and get home for New Year's Eve. And Drew's got to get a connecting flight back to Hong Kong. So we'll bail out late on the 31st. But we always have a crew lunch, usually up the road at a little hotel that some of you may know. Tell lots of stories. One of the problems is the stories seem to be the same as the year before. We just keep telling them. But we have a good get-together, and we then have a big regatta in Melbourne called the Geelong Regatta, and over Australia Day weekend. So we'll go and do that and settle back into a bit of a routine.
What sort of weather would you like on Corio Bay for that one?
Anything other than a sou'wester with cold, with cold conditions.
Well, Bruce and Drew, I think I could speak on behalf of the yachting fraternity that your contribution to the Rolex Sydney Hobart race over the years has been phenomenal. And I've often said it on the broadcast, we do on Channel 7 for the start, that there would be no more popular win than Chutzpah winning the Hobart race, because you've been there so close so many times. I think you better come back so I can say it again, and let's hope, and I would think that it would be one of the most popular wins in the history of the race. So, Drew, thank you for your contribution. Bruce, certainly for your contribution. It's been phenomenal. Good luck, and see you next year, no doubt.
Thank you both.
Everybody here at the Rolex Race Village, put your hands together for Bruce and Drew Taylor and the crew on Schutzbar. And yeah, let's get that win before he decides to finally call it a day. Yeah. We're going to take a look at Khaleesi now, which has crossed the line. And I think might be in about 28th place as the Schutzbar boys leave us. They were 24th across the line and still 24th place overall. But Khaleesi and Mayfair that finished a little bit earlier, just off Sandy Bay, when the sea breeze hadn't come in, Peter.
That's right. They're still beating to windward there. That's Khaleesi. She finished at 20 past 9 this morning. Just see the light air there. She's battling up the river in a lightish breeze, just tacking now, coming in towards the finish. She's off Sandy Bay, I think. If you're a local here, Pete, that's about right, isn't it? Coming into the finish at Battery Point, a nice tack. This boat's owned by Rob Aldous and Sandy Farquharson from New South Wales. They race out of the Middle Harbour Yacht Club. Unfortunately, they retired out of the race last year, but made amends this year. And at the moment, we're just watching them come to the finish. I'll just see where they are running on handicap at the moment. Provisionally, they're 25th overall, and there's the yellow finishing line, the inner end of the line.
So they're just one place behind Chutzpah.
Yeah, and they'll be 4th in their division, Division 2. And here's Mayfair. She was the boat close by, Khaleesi. She finished at, where are we with Mayfair? She finished at 41 minutes past 9, so she was about 21 minutes behind Khaleesi. That's James Irvine boat from Queensland.
And you might see some of the shots that we're getting from the finish line from the drone, and shots of the Castro Esplanade finishing boys there from mark to mark that I've never really seen before. So the drone up above is really giving us an insight into, the finish here that we've perhaps haven't had the privilege of seeing before, but we have sent one drone into the drink today. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, there's one there down on the bottom of on the River Derwent. So
sack the drone captain.
Any scuba divers want to go out and find one there, I think we're going to replace it somehow.
But Pete,
here we are back live.
But as we're talking, I think even the last 20 minutes or so, the sea breeze has picked up a few knots, a few little white caps appearing, and we've got probably 10 to 11 knots of breeze. So the fleet that are in Storm Bay will be making pretty good progress, and as I said, by 3-4 o'clock it'll be quite brisk, and we'll see spinnakers billowing out as they come around the Garrow.
And is this the smallest entrant in the race that we're seeing coming into Kings Pier right now? I don't think so. Little skiff coming in.
Yeah, no, I don't think he would have been eligible, really. So there's the great sight. There's Blackjack, last year's line honours winner. And in the background behind us, the red and black of Andu Comanche that finished at 12:56 on the 28th of December. There's that little skiff, 50, what is it? Oh, 2.4, yeah, the little 2.4, like a model yacht, aren't they? There's the bow of Blackjack, and so she's just weaving in and out of the pens there that'll be filling up as the day goes on. And as I said earlier, I think there's going to be some boats moored in Constitution Dock, which takes us back to certainly the old days.
Trusting their seamanship there in amongst the big boats. They don't want to damage one of these multi-million-dollar vessels we're out there. But we've got a new guest with us on the stage here at the Rolex Race Village, a Goodfellow. Can you introduce him to us, please, Pete?
Rob Goodfellow. How are you, Rob?
Charlie.
Charlie, I knew that. Is Rob your dad, is that right?
No.
Oh, no, okay, right. I knew. Yeah,
is he related?
No relation.
No relation,
wow.
Okay, good. That was a good start. So, Charlie, tell us your story. You're a Hobart boy?
Yes, I was born and raised in Hobart. I moved to Sydney earlier in the year to start work with Sydney Rigging. So I've been up with them since May, and been sailing since I was a young boy on the Derwent. And I've always wanted to do the Sydney to Hobart yacht race to come back home. And yeah, this was the year that I finally got it done.
And tell us about your experience.
So yeah, I was on No Limit and we had a really good race. Perfect conditions for us. We couldn't really have asked for much better. The first day was a bit soft, but we still made good ground down the coast.
Well,
Where are you here, Rob?
Here we go. Charlie.
Charlie.
You're getting it mixed
Yeah.
up. I told you that.
Yeah.
So here's the split mainsail. Talk us through that, Charlie.
Yeah, so this happened
This is in the river.
coming into Tasman Island. We're about 40 nautical miles away and we just blown up our spinnaker. So we're a bit slow, we were still trying to recover from that. And we had to take a jibe and we just didn't get the main in on time and it got caught in the runner and blew the main up and we kind of we were so close so we just kept going with it because it was too windy to repair. But yeah, it definitely slowed us down a bit.
So where are you on the boat here? We're just looking at the bow at the moment.
So on the boat coming up the Derwent I was trimming and then offshore I do the bow and trim. So yeah, a bit of everything on the boat.
So is the Hobart race everything you thought it would be?
Yeah, it definitely was. Everyone's saying it was probably one of the easiest years with regards to the weather, just having one system down. But no, it's definitely a good race and everything I expected with the challenges that came coming into Storm Bay.
And quite a contrast, you and your first Hobart, a bloke on board doing his 54th.
Yeah, it's definitely, no, having Tony there was a lot of experience and yeah, there's a very large contrast between me and my first and him and his 54th.
Do you think you'll get to 54?
Don't reckon I'll make it to 54, but no, it's...
Never say never.
Was
Never
Tony
say-
Ellis extolling all his wisdom to you on the way down from Sydney?
Yes, he definitely does and looks after us all with his wisdom, doing it more than anyone else, so yeah, but it's a very good group of guys.
So Charlie, just tell us a bit about No Limit, owned by David Goetz, and she's had a good record in the race. She finished third when she was known as Voodoo in 2018. Tell us how the boat performed and how you enjoyed the rather good conditions, certainly to Tasman Island.
Yeah. So the boat's a 63 footer designed by Rachel Pugh and it is built for the Hobart. That's kind of was the plan for it. And yeah, it's built for more higher wind ranges, downwind. So yeah, in that windier stuff, we had 30 knots coming down to Tasman. The boat definitely, that's when it finds its sweet spot and gets going a bit more. And yeah, it's just that windier groove downwind, the boat definitely find its little niche of speed, you could say.
And you had some good helmsmen aboard. Barney Walker from Victoria. He's won this race a couple of times. Julian Freeman, the nephew of the famous Graham Frizzle Freeman.
Yeah.
He was on board. A couple of good helmsmen there.
No, yeah, those two definitely, when they get on the helm, the boat goes out a little bit quicker. They definitely have that skill that not many people have, and they're very good at what they do. And they know that, and we all know that.
Well, they tell you how good they are, do they?
Yeah, they go.
Were you able, though, to impart some local knowledge once you got into familiar waters here off Hobart?
Not really, because I haven't seen the Derwent really ever be like that, 50 knot northerly, coming up in this time of the year. So it's definitely new for a lot of us on the boat, even though the amount of experience in the boat coming up with the Derwent. So yeah, we came around the Iron Pot, and there wasn't much wind, just all of a sudden here. And I mean, that's Tasmania for you, that's Hobart.
Well, Charlie, let's talk about your profession. You mentioned earlier that you're working with a company called Sydney Rigging, which is obviously based in Sydney, and they provide rigging, all the movable rigging parts, the ropes, and for yachts. How are you involved in that company, and how are you learning your trade?
So I'm involved. I do some days in the factory doing a lot of the splicing and making the halyards and learning about all the strops on the boats and the mechanics.
Here we are looking at your yacht No Limit in at Kings Pier Marina. What are they doing there at the moment?
They're putting on the delivery gear to get the boat ready to head back up to Sydney to have some repairs done, get ready for the race next year.
So your company will be taking care of all the gear that needs replacing when they get back up there?
Yeah, hopefully we'll be onto a lot of the gear that we broke during the race, and then hopefully we get some of those sails repaired that we broke during the race as well.
And your company provide a lot of the rigging, or the rigging, for most of the top boats, don't they? I mean, Andrew Comanche is supplied by your company?
Yeah, so we provide a lot of the rigging for all the 100 footers and a lot of the Grand Prix boats we do. It's like what we specialise in, but we definitely do a lot of cruising boats as well. So yeah, we go on for a broad range of boats. Nothing, a job is a job.
And what are these high-tech ropes made of these days? I mean, they're so strong and so small.
So these days the big boats are using PBO, which is the material that we use, and it's just super heat strong. so it just means they don't melt on the crew when they're out there.
Okay, well, here's Blackjack now. Your boss, Bruce Clark, sails on this boat, doesn't he?
Yes,
so
Bruce.
I assume you supply the rigging to this boat.
Yeah, we do the rigging on Blackjack.
Well, there you can just have some idea of the rigging. That's the standing rigging. That's the rigging that doesn't move. They're the stays that hold the mast up, as opposed to the running rigging, which is like the sheets that move. They're very complex, very expensive, very high exotic materials used in all the ropes and the standing rigging, and you can just see those flags are starting to flutter, Pete. The breeze is getting up, so they're bringing these fleet home now that are around the corner. But
And Charlie, Blackjack took line on us last year. Do you take personal pride when a yacht that's using your gear is successful like that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone takes pride in working on the big boats because they are the pride of Australia in sailing. And I mean, it's hard because throughout the business they all sail on their own 100 footers, so there's a bit of competition within the staff, but no, we all take pride in working on them and making sure they're in top condition for the race.
great. Well, Charlie, thank you very much for your time. It's
Thank
been
you for
great.
having me.
I'm glad you've enjoyed your first trip to Hobart. Wait till you get up to 54 and then we can talk again.
Yeah, it'll be a good chat.
And give my regards to Rob if you ever find him.
Yeah, will do.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much, Charlie. All the
And
best.
your family are out, Charlie, are they, watching you on stage here today?
No, they're not here today.
They're looking for Rob.
didn't come.
Yes. All right, thanks, Charlie. We'll
Thank you.
see you around the docks.
Welcome
and,
back to Hobart.
See you back in Sydney.
Will do.
Fantastic. So a Tasmanian connection
Yeah.
on No Limit. So
Well, that's what this sport's all about, bringing young blokes into it. How old are you, Charlie? 19. He's 19, there you go. So you can only do now the Hobart race once you're 18. So that rule was invoked after the tragic 1998 race. So 19, he's got a big future ahead of him and he's right in the game of supplying rigging to all these boats. And so it's great to see these young people because old blokes, we can't do it anymore. Well, you can, but it gets harder and harder. So it's wonderful for the sport that these young guys are involved, and that's what we need, really.
Well, the TP52s have fought out overall honours, everything provisional at the moment. Celestial looks like it's going to win the race on handicap. At Quest, one of those number that was racing. Who have we got on stage with us right now?
We've got Craig Neal, the owner of Quest. I think that's right, isn't it? Craig, I got your name right. Craig, welcome. Another good performance from Quest, 5th at this stage provisionally. Happy with that?
Yeah,
Oh, no, obviously not happy, but satisfied, I guess.
Yeah, satisfied. It was a really great race amongst the TP52s. It looks like we could potentially have 7 TP52s in the top 10, which is a really great result. And look, it was very competitive, and I think we're one of the older TP52s, so we were a little bit off the pace on the first day in the lighter conditions. But then coming into the second day when the wind filled in, we were on the pace and probably made some gains actually. That was a sort of a race of two halves for us. Yeah.
And you got out of the harbour okay?
Yeah, it was a bit slow out of the harbour for us, not the greatest of starts. We got sort of a bit shadowed by some of the maxis, but that's just what you have to contend with. And
Well, I think you could apply the old saying that you can't win the race in the harbour, but you can lose it, can't you?
You've
just got to get
absolutely.
out clean.
Yeah, it's just nice to have a good start. It's good for your mindset, where you
Absolutely.
are on the racetrack. Yeah. So I think that was. Yeah.
So, what was the strongest wind speed you saw throughout the race? Probably coming to the finish, was it?
Yes, into the finish, up the river, and from the Row onwards, we were seeing I think we saw 50 odd knots at one point. So that was quite a lot.
That's
These
fresh.
squalls coming through, and quite challenging. Yeah.
So you got hit by one bullet and then you just knew there was another one coming, but you didn't know what sort of gap there'd be between them.
That's right. Yeah, and we had these interesting squirrels on the water that you could see. These white squirrels that came through, and we caught one of those. And I don't know what. I think that the wind wasn't correctly picked up on that, but it was well over 50 knots. That would have picked us up just for a few seconds, but it was but tough. Yeah.
Did you break anything?
No. We broke one spinnaker through the night. We just pushed it too hard, pushed it to its limits, and.
What happens when you break one?
Well, just an almighty bang, and the boat sort of buries its nose.
And the wallet takes a bit of a dive too.
Yeah, that's right. And you hang on, and then a bit of swearing, and then you get the spinnaker off. Yeah, so you bring it down. Yeah,
But Craig, let's talk about Quest. I mean, it's really has got a very solid place in the history of the Rolex Sydney Hobart race. It's a 2-time winner. She won once as Balance, went under charter to Paul Clitheroe. Back now as Quest, and she's had, I think, a 2nd and a 3rd and a 5th. That's
correct? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, look, it's a great boat. It's quite a legacy. It's very well maintained. All the owners that have had the boat have really kept that up, and we're always modifying it and making it faster. It's a 19-year-old boat now, so it's getting on in years, but still manages to get in amongst the mix. And if the conditions are right, we can occasionally nail a win, which is great. Yeah.
And you say you're one of the older TPs, 52s, the 52-footers. Your rating's just a little bit lower, which is favourable if you're close, isn't it, obviously?
Correct, yeah. No, the rating system does take that into account, the age of the boat and its performance. So, yeah, look, it is a fair system. We'd like it to be fairer, but that's what it is.
Yeah. And let's talk about your sailing master, Mike Green, 43rd Sydney Hobart race.
Yeah.
He must be mad, is he?
He's mad. He's mad. He's slightly mad. No, he's fantastic. It's his input to the boat and the program is fantastic. Like, he's such a great guy. He does it out of love. He comes along and. Look, his sailing knowledge and his speed of that boat, he knows that boat better than anyone. He can be lying in his bunk downstairs and tell if we're half a knot off the pace. He's got that sort of experience.
So that's the sounds he's hearing?
It's the sounds, it's just the feel of the boat, and we've got an intercom and he's calling it up saying, look, come on, you're off the pace, do this, do that. And he doesn't need to look at the computer or anything, he just knows. So he's so experienced and just such an asset to our program.
Well, of course, his father, the late Peter Green, was a very famous Sydney Hobart yachtsman. He was aboard Pasha when they won in 1970.
Right.
And I think Peter did 40-plus Hobarts as well.
Yeah.
Very close to it. So
the madness runs in the family.
You need somebody mad on board to keep up the morale at times and to give you a joke from now and then.
My favourite part of the race was we actually hit a sunfish coming across Bass Strait, and we caught the fish on the fin, on the keel fin, and it stopped us, and we pulled our spinnaker down and the other sails we had up on the bow, turned the boat around head to wind, and then we backed it down and got the fish off, and then we turned around and we're thinking about, what are we going to do now? And it was like, I want to win this thing, Mike Green said. So let's put the spinnaker straight back up and let's get going. And that's exactly what we did. So we only lost a few minutes, like 10 minutes.
Talk us through the manoeuvre. How do you do that to the lay people that mightn't quite understand?
So you once again, it's another big bearing position where you sort of dig your nose in. Big wave comes over the front, and then everything's flapping around. The boat was sort of jammed up, so we pulled our spinnaker down, and we had 2 other sails up on the deck at the same time. So we're triple-headed at that point. We got them all down, and then we turned the boat into the wind just with the mainsail up, and we hold the main up, and we actually go backwards. So you hold the main up into the wind, and you come down backwards, and then the fish came off the front, and we saw it come off, and then we turned around and got back into it.
How was the sunfish?
It's okay. It swam away, but it looked a bit worse for wear. Bit bruised, but it was still in one piece.
When you initially hit it, did you think, wow, something's broken? Or did you
absolutely.
know what?
Yeah, I was actually downstairs cooking at the time, and the floorboards bounced up off. It was a big hit.
Cooking seafood, were you?
No. It was just, it was a time meal because we knew the second night was going to be wild, so we had a hot meal during the day. It was about 2:00 in the afternoon when we hit that, so we could see it all, which was kind of good, better than hitting it at night, I guess. Yeah. So, but it's big fish, almost 1,000 kilos of fish. Yeah. So it's.
Well, Craig, we're less than a year away for the 2023 Rolex Sydney Hobart race. Yeah. We're seeing Quest. Going to have another.
I think so. Yeah.
Go?
Look, we never know. We're going to look at our program. We have the TP52 Gold Cup series coming up in the new year, so we'll be racing in that in a different mode. That's more of an inshore configuration. So up against all these great boats once again, and. We'll get that and reconsider our program for around July and work out what we're going to do next year. So wouldn't be surprised if we come
Well,
back.
it's been another good performance. You're right in the mix, 5th. overall, that's not to be laughed at by any means, is it?
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, we're happy with where we came, given what we have and the conditions we had, and I'm really pleased. And our crew, once again, just a fantastic effort. An amateur team that really put in, and we've been together for some time, and couldn't be prouder of them, really. Yeah.
All right, Craig, well, thank you very much. It's good to see you here safe and sound, and let's look ahead to next year and maybe grab a few more places up and get the gold. Well done. Thanks, Craig. Thanks very much.
Round of applause, please, for Craig Neal, owner, skipper of Quest. Thanks for giving us your time, Craig. Hey, he looks a ball of muscle too. He looks like he's off for a run, I think. We're going to update you on what's happening in terms of boats on the river if you're with us at the Rolex Race Village, or if you're on the live stream around the world. We've had 28 boats finished so far, but the next two in, Sunrise and our Hungarian entry, Cassiopeia 68, off South Arm at the moment.
Yeah, you can see those boats. Hutchie's Yeah Baby. There's a few more boats in the river. I just got to expand this. Insomnia, Hutchie's Yeah Baby. Kealoha is halfway between the Rowell and the Iron Pot. And so they'll be having nice conditions. And then the big rumble down the east coast of Tasmania, you can see the boats closing in on the Rum Line, which is the straight line between Sydney Heads and Tasman Island. And there'll be around Maria Island up to Freycinet, so a good influx of boats still to come. And at the moment, it's still Celestial, the provisional winner on corrected time. I think that's going to be probably confirmed sometime later tonight or later this afternoon.
Yes, there might be a presentation tomorrow morning.
I think that's right. Yeah. Here, I think they're going to present the winner with their medals and the trophy. And, well, see how it pans out. But at the moment, it looks like that Celestial is certainly in the box seat.
And look at those arrows. So subtly at the moment, we're under a high pressure ridge at the moment, and the sea breeze really is dropping the temperature a bit here on the stage, Pete. Even us Hobartians starting to feel a little bit chilly. But tonight, this probably will drop out around dusk, and they might be queuing up around Tasman Island, trying to get into Storm Bay. Yeah,
you've got to get in here by 10 o'clock, or else you'll be out there till 10 o'clock the next morning for sure, going nowhere. But at the moment, the winners are mostly in, but the smaller boats, there's still a lot to play for in the smaller divisions. Division 3, 4 and 5, yet to be decided because those boats aren't in.
Well, I hope wherever you've joined us this afternoon, this has given you an insight into what it's like to be an ocean racer. And they all seem very happy with their events, no matter where they've actually finished. It's been an experience, as it always is, the Rolex Sydney Hobart. Peter Shipway, thank you very much for joining us on the main stage here at the Race Village on the Village Green. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon, those of you that are lucky enough to be live here at the finish of the Rolex Sydney Hobart for 2022, the 77th running of this Blue Water Classic. And around the world, if you want to join us back on the stream, you can do so in about 3¼ hours. We'll be back live with our 4 o'clock update. So until then, it's goodbye from Hobart.